Oh wow. So yeah, in terms of the fast, there's certain certain pasukim, certain things that they read, certain Torah portions, for example. Hold on. Yeah, so what should we be reading today? It's a very good question. All right. So hold on. Read this morning. Just want to give you pages. All right. So Sukkot, Tanit. mm, Okay, fine. So what we'll do is we'll learn it inside, right? Make it easier. So because I was going to just say read this, read that, but this just see how this say just put it together. Okay, hold on, man. Bring it up right now. Okay, hold on. Okay, perfect. Okay, so it's like this. So we're gonna learn it inside. All right. So here's a connection because yesterday we went over the halakha for for the halachot for it, and so now we're going to go inside and see like what are we connecting to on this day, being the 10th of Tevet, and like what's going on, how it works. So sum ha'ashiri. So it says ze asra be tevet. So he says like this: the 10th of Tevet. This is in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah 18b. So he says the fast of Tevet. This is the 10th of Tevet, which is the king of which the king of Babylon laid siege on Jerusalem, as it stated. In the ninth year, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the 10th month, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, write the name of the day of this day. The king of Babylon was laid siege to Jerusalem on this very day. So today, the day that we're on, this is the time where the Babylonians came and waged siege in siege of this thing, right? And it says this in Ezekiel. It says, "Why did he call it the fast of the 10th? Because it is in Tevet, which is the 10th month. Wouldn't have been fitting to write the first the fast as a series of events began that laid the siege. Why is it written here at the fast is at the end? So he's asking questions. So why does it say the so he's saying he asked him a question. Why is this the fast first? So it's a fast of Tevet, right? Why is it written? He's asking a question. Why is it written here the fast of Tevet, right? And so the fast of the vet, they're asking that question. He says, why couldn't it have been written that the fast of Tibet? Say the 10th. He said the 10th, the 10th of, I don't know how else you will say it, but we'll see what he's going to say. But he's questioning this part. He's saying, I'm going to say it again. He says, why did he call it the fast of the 10th? Because it is in Tibet, which is the 10th of this month. Wouldn't it have been fitting to write it as this fast first, as the series of events begin with laying the siege? Why is it written here at the end of the list? This was done in order to list the months in proper order. Okay, so this is what he's asking. Okay, so he's asking like this. We know that the ninth of Av is the time that the temple was destroyed, right? But what they're saying is that the process started prior to that, which means it had to start the year prior, right? Which is now the Babylonians first coming in making siege on 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 this whole situation in Babylon. So they're saying Why is this? Because if we would have learned the Gemara prior, they went through a list of fast days, right? And so the last fast day is the 10th of Tevet, right? But in essence, Tevet is the beginning of the series of events that led to the destruction of the temple, right? That makes any sense. So he says, so he's asking the question, why is it's in this order? He said, this is done in order to list the months in their proper order, as the prophets begin with the fourth month and ended with the 10th month. This is a statement of Rabbi Kiva. Ve'ani eini omer kin. And just as a side point, if you have a Siddur, right? If you have a Siddur, you have some Siddur, you could look inside of the index of the Siddur. It'll always tell you the readings for all the different fast days. Okay? All right. So he says like this. So he says, Ve'ani eine omer kin. So he says, Rabbi Shimon disagreed. He says, I do not say this, but rather I expound on the verse as follows. The fast of the 10th, this is the he says, this is the fifth of Tevet. So Rabbi Shimon sees it differently, right? Rabbi Shimon says, no, I don't believe it's on the 10th of Tevet. I'm I'm saying it's actually the fifth of Tevet, right? Because it just says the fast of Tevet, right? That's what it says, right? It just says the fast of the 10th, right? The fast of the 10th, and we hold that that's the 10th month. So that's Tevet. So this fast is connected to this idea of Babylonians seizing on the 10th. But Rabbi Shimon says different. No, the fast is really on the 5th of Tevet. He says because on this day, he said the reports reached the diaspora, the Jews that were outside of Israel, that the city has been wiped out in essence. As it is stated, it came to pass in the 12th year of our exile, in the 10th month, on the 5th day of the month, that one had escaped out of Jerusalem, came to me saying, the city is smitten. He says this in Ezekiel. And he says, and they made the day of the report of the destruction like the day of the actual burning in the desecration as a fast day. So he's saying, so the desecration of them coming in to Israel was on the 10th. But Rabbi Shimon is saying that he holds that the fast day is actually on the 5th because that's when we heard about it. He says, "Veni ira'in devrei mid devrav." He says, Rabbi Shimon added, and he says, and my statement seems more convincing than his statement, as I say about the first fast mentioned by the prophets, that it marks the events that took place first, and about the last fast that marks the events that took place last. So he's talking about the order, right? Because we have 5 fast days throughout the year, right? Or 4 fast days that are rabbinical, and then another one that is derisa, right? Meaning it's in the Torah. So one of the fast days that say we start with this one, Tevet. We start with Tevet, and so this is the beginning, right? Then you have then you have I guess it's a different fast date. So then you have the fast of Esther, right? We had the fast of Esther. Then you have the fast of the 17th of Tammuz, right? And then you have the fast of the 9th of Av, right? And then you have the fast of Gedalia, which is during Rosh Hashanah, the 3rd day. And then you have the fast of Yom Kippur, right? So it's more than that, actually. But 4 rabbinical ones, right? So anyway, so he's saying, so they're talking about the order of how the fasts are listed. And we probably should have went back a little bit further. All right, I don't want to go so much into that. So the study, right? The study on this fast day. Hold on one second. So I just want to hold on. I'm trying to find because at my Siddur it doesn't necessarily. Does it say? Does it have the exact dates in the passages you're reading in your Siddur or no? Is it in your prayer book? I can't hear you if you're speaking. You're still on mute.
In my prayer book, I don't see the four fasts, but I know that in my each prayer book, it has the four fasts. But I was kind of looking at the just the reading that we were reading through for the month of Tevez
Mm-hmm.
and Tevez, and it actually had like, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but I think the word was the a. Let me spell it for you here. My tab is going. This was it. Okay. It was the ANENU. And how you say that?
ANU.
Anu.
Okay.
ANENU. Sure, it's a very common prayer.
What is it?
Right here, honey.
We saying Ani?
Ani.
Maybe.
Is that a prayer?
Maybe.
ANENU.
So wait, so are they saying this is the reading you should be doing?
They said that one, and also I think there was something.
Okay, so normally this is normally so okay, so over here the way that we have it is like this, right? So
Okay.
on a public fast day, right? On a public fast day, we usually read Exodus chapter 32. We read it today. Chapter 32, verses 11 to 14. And
Yes, sir.
also and also chapter 34, verse 1 through 10. And then we read it, and then you read it, after you pray in the morning, or you could do it, in the middle, and you do it in the afternoon.
Okay. That's what we
Yeah, it's
okay.
Well, I have a section here about the four fasts.
Yeah,
So
it's more detailed.
So for the four fasts, is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, it's like the public fast days, like those four public fasts, was pretty much the same. Now, Tish B'Av, which is the destruction of the temple, there's a different reading for that, right? And then on Yom Kippur, there's also a different reading, right? And then also during the fast of Esther. But the other fast days are the same reading for the public fast days.
Got you. I understand that. So it's always I guess
there's actually a section here for the 10th of Tevet.
Mm-hmm.
And so but see, the way this one is laid out, it has a section for the 10th of Tevet, but then it's within the section, a large section for the four fasts, but then they have additions for the four fasts. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. I mean, it just is it Sephardic Siddur you have?
Yeah, this is Sephardic Siddur.
Yeah. I mean, there's all different types of things, but the main point is if you do that, you read on the mitzvah, you know what I mean, of that day. But there's a lot of additions and traditions and minhag. It's the key thing is directing your thoughts. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have that.
What I was saying. Yes, I found it. And you said it was
32
and 34 as well.
Yeah,
1 through
34, 34, 1 through 10, exactly.
Okay, yes, sir. We found it.
You guys got it?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, cool. So that's the thing is just and we have such a great understanding of the fast. This is like such a completion, right? Because we understand the spiritual significance of the fast. We understand the halakha of the fast, right? And now we understand on this particular fast, what are we connecting to, right? Because it's like, what is the idea of the fast? Because we learn that we can reverse days, right? The days where we're disconnected, we can reverse those days. So in essence, it was a terrible day, right? But it means if we had a terrible day, that again, as we know, tragedy is a mechanism of connection to the life force of the creator, right? And so as we take this tragedy and we turn it into a day of atonement, of a day of tshuva, we now elevated that experience, right? And we're going to keep elevating it until Mashiach comes. And then these fast days are going to be days of partying because we're going to be clear on what we went through, what we accomplished, and we're going to celebrate it. So yeah, but we're in the game. We've done more comprehensive understanding of fasting than a lot of our brothers and sisters who are doing it right now. And I just got back from shopping. God, people out there eating and this and partying, and I'm just like, bro, it's a fast day. What are you guys doing, man? You know, but it's all good. It's all good. You know, we have to have patience. You know, and the more we're examples, that vibration, people just want to start fasting for no reason. Okay, let's keep it pushing. We got to go back into our brother Rav Ashlag, our big brother. We got to just keep moving this thing out. I've been so affected. Like I was very always connected to Rav Ashlag, and in every stage you grow, you're going to learn the same thing in a new way, right? So it's just like, so I'm just learning it, but it's just so amazing when we think about this idea of the souls that are in the heavens and understanding that quality of those souls. And then as those souls come down into this world, they enter this body and then they develop an additional form of intelligence. And this additional form of intelligence is a different than the original energy, which was in a place of pure sharing. They were extension of the creator. But the creator created the world in such a way that when these souls came down into this world and they came into the body, they developed a new intelligence, a new existence, or an additional aspect, which is this desire to receive, right? And this desire to receive is what embedded the soul to stay in the body, right? Because if it wasn't for the desire to receive, the soul would be like, I'm out of here, right? It's a cement thing, right? And so now that this soul has this desire to receive, what is this mechanism? How does that fit into the plan of creation? Right? Because the plan of creation was for the soul to come into this reality and to reunite with the creator. But if I'm in the frame of the desire to receive, then from that context, well, how do I complete that journey? And so that's where the dynamic of spirituality and darkness come together. Because on one token, we come to this enlightenment that, oh, we are beings from the creator, right? And the creator has a will. Hopefully we have parents, we have family, we have community says, like, no, you shouldn't do this, you should do that, you should live this way, you shouldn't live that way, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. And so our society develops these rules, right? No matter what society we grow up in a Christian society, we got rules, Muslim society, Jewish, Buddhist, everyone has rules. So what happens? So what is this dynamic of creation that God gives rules, but at the same time, there's this temptation for us not to do these rules, right? God brings a serpent and he distracts us to convince us, like, God, you told me to keep this rule, and then you're going to create the very mechanism that comes and distracts me from my mission that you gave to me. You gave it to me. I didn't choose this. So now we've learned through Rav Ashlag and his teachings, which we could read other Sepharim and we're going to hear similar things. Maybe not that way, may hear it a different way, because this is the ultimate truth, is to say that, oh, wow, the serpent was there to allow these souls to have to cling to the creator through the process of repentance. This is how the system works. So when we read Genesis, and we read these stories, now we're getting it in a new way. We're not just reading a simple story. We're not just reading this thing. And that's the most important part to get out of this journey with Rav Ashlag, or just the Kabbalistic text in general, is to say, like, what actually am I reading and what's being communicated? Because now that I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, wait, the serpent makes sense. Now eat from this tree and not this tree makes sense. One tree is called the Etz Chaim, the tree of life, and one is called the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. So do you want life or you know what I'm saying? So it's just saying, so now we have the chance to recalibrate it, because when we have students, we bring them into the truth. We want to bring them into the total truth, right? We want them to have a full understanding of the spiritual universe. And then when you read the text, it strengthens you, right? And it doesn't become, well, I think it means this. I think it means that. In a thousand interpretations in one room, right? Okay, everyone can have an insight. Everyone could build off of their life experiences and see something unique. However, anyways, so that's the point. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep diving into this. Any points on that? Anything else said? Good. Okay, cool. All right, let's keep pushing. Okay. Oh, so that. Okay. Whoa. All righty, hold on. Okay, here we go. Let's go. All right. So he says Vehanek Motzia Vecharu Sheish Gimel. Okay. So he says he said the three states of the soul, right? So he says it is necessarily he says it's necessarily follows that the souls can generally exist in three states. So he's going on the tradition that we've had on how the soul functions and how we should understand it. Their existence, number one, this is the first state of the soul. Their existence within the infinite as part of the plan of creation, they already have their future form, the one that they will have after the repair is complete. He says, Matzav Have. And so he says, number two. So he's saying there's okay. So this try to understand. He says there's three experiences of the soul. Okay, their existence. So this is the first experience. Their existence. He said their existence within the infinite, right? They're part of the plan, and they already have their future, and they just have to go through tikkuning, right? The whole thing is already laid out, and they're going to have certain challenges and certain things that make them change, and from there they're going to go into this reality God has already sent for them. Okay. Second, their existence during the 6,000 years of the world's existence, in which they are separated into two systems, yielding the body and the soul. In that state, they are given the service of Torah and mitzvot, so they can transform their selfish desires into a desire to give satisfaction to their creator, and not for themselves at all. During this time, their bodies will not be repaired at all. Only the souls will. This is to say, the souls must eliminate themselves from any element of selfishness, selfish receiving. This is the aspect of the body that remains only with an element of giving, which is the form of the soul's desire. Even the soul of the righteous cannot enjoy the pleasures of Eden after death until their bodies have completely decomposed in the grave. He says, Gamar ha-tikun shel nashamot acharei tichait. All right, hameit. So he says, the third, complete repair of the souls following the resurrection of the dead. Then even the bodies shall be repaired, and even the soul itself, which is the form of the body, will be transformed such that a form of pure giving will rest upon the body. The soul will then become worthy of receiving for themselves all the good, pleasures, and pleasance that is in the plan of creation. while still being worthy of this strong bond with God, since there will be an initial form to their creator, for they will not receive all of this pleasure that is in the plan of creation out of their own desire to receive, but out of the desire to give to the creator. After all, God has pleasure when others receive from him. He says, Ave Shalem. He says, and to simplify the discussion from now on, I will use the term first state, second state, and third state. Later, recall how I have defined these terms. So he says, It says, ukeshiti se ta techal begemom matzvim halalu. So he says, when one examines these three states, he must realize that they are dependent on one another. If one of them were absent, the others would necessarily also be absent. For example, without the third state in which the form of receiving is transformed into the form of giving, the first state could never have emerged from the endless world, right? So what he's saying is, I thought when he first said it, I initially thought he was talking about three different types of souls. As really he's talking about one soul that has different stages of progression, right? And so he's saying, so he's explaining that idea, right? That's why you just got to read, you got to let it unfold. And he says, all the various perfections only emerge from the Insof because they would eventually reach the third state within the initially of God, within the eternity of God, the future state, third, was already there in the present. The perfection perceived in that the first form was simply copied from the future. So wait, let's understand this, because I wasn't clear on the first state either. Like, what does that mean exactly? Okay, the perfection perceived in the first form was simply copied from the future. Third state. Wow. Okay, into the present that was there in the first state. If we were, hold on. Hold on 1 second. Somebody just came in. Oh, Otinel's here. Yeah, this is real. Okay, so we're talking about the resurrection of the dead. All right, so OT, you with us? OT's in the house. All right. So
Shalom, Ralph.
he's in the house. He's in the hey. It's hard out there
Shalom,
in
shalom.
Texas. You
Shalom,
know?
shalom. Sorry for the lateness. I think I got the times wrong.
No, bro. It's me. I'm like, I'm dealing with stuff. Anyways, you're good. You came at the perfect time. So what we're doing now is that Rav Ashlag, so since we have a clarity of the soul being this pure source connected to God, but comes into this body and it's injected with this koach, this power of the desire to receive for oneself alone, or the desire to receive. This is the union between the body and the soul, is this desire to receive for oneself alone. And we learn that so how does God reconnect us to our source if our body is in the frame of the desire to receive for oneself alone? And we how do we reconnect to the creator? So we talk about the darkness, right? The klipa, the dark side. So the dark side works because we have morality, right? We have a morality, we have a system, and we fell at it. I made a mistake. I can't believe it. Shem, forgive me. So because of that dark side, right? Because of that dark side, now in ethics, now we have this mechanism that propels us to reach upwards to reconnect to the creator, right? And so now Rav Ashlag is going into the three different types of the souls. And now, but in the three types of souls, he's really talking about the soul's progressions, right? And so that's where we were at when you came in. And so we're going to jump back into it. If you don't, just ask questions, don't work, because I know you came in late. So if anything comes up, just ask. But I know you know a lot of this. Okay. So Okay, so let's go back a little bit. I want to go back just a little bit to see what was going on. So here are the three states again, right? So it's good to review this because based off what he's saying now, he says this is the first state of a soul, right? He says their existence within the infinite is part of the plan of creation. They already have the future form, the one that they will have after the repair is complete. Okay, so when I first read that, I understood it. I understood it from the standpoint of, okay, there's a development level of the soul where the soul is kind of like already in this future state, but is dealing with cocooning here, and then it goes into the second the second level of the soul, their existence during the 600 years in which they are separated into two systems, yielding the body and the soul in that state that they were given to service the Torah and mitzvot. So this is a life where you were given the Torah and the mitzvot, and by doing this, we transform our nature from selfishness into sharing. Right? It says during this time the bodies will not be repaired, and only the soul will. As it says, the souls will eliminate. The souls must eliminate from themselves the selfishness, the selfish receiving that is the aspect of the body, and only remains with an element of giving, which is the form of the soul's desire. Even the soul of the righteous cannot enjoy the pleasures of Gan Eden, right? After death, until the body's completely deposed. So what he's saying is, okay, so the first one, what we're going to see now is connected to the last one, right? Because the state that we were in, it says at the end of it, so the first state, look at the end of it. It says after the repair is complete. So this reality that we're supposed to live in is part of this aspect, this state of the soul that will exist is going to be a state that the future reality will experience, but as it goes through this process of tikkunim. The second state of the soul is in that tikkunim, right? Which is this dynamic of repairing the soul and not necessarily the body. And then now we go to this third state, which is the repair of the soul following the resurrection of the dead. Even the bodies will be repaired. So this is the completion. And even the receiving cell itself, which is the form of the body, will transform that a form is the pure that a form of pure giving will rest upon the body. And then the soul will become worthy of receiving for themselves all the good, pleasure, and pleasantries that is the plan of creation. So again, let's go back to this first part. It says the existence within the infinite is as part of the plan of creation. They already have their future form, and they will have after. So that this what he just described, that the future exists, and the future is a world where we're receiving nothing but Hashem's life. The body itself is in a frame of sharing. The soul itself went through a frame of sharing, and we're in a complete unity with the Creator. Meaning that when the bodies are resurrected, when the resurrection of the dead happens, that it brings all these elements together, and then after that, like you said, after the completion is after the repair is complete, it goes. We achieve what the plan was in the beginning for creation, right? So we just jump past that. So when he says when one examines these three states, he will realize that they are dependent on one another. If one of them are absent, the others would necessarily be absent. For example, without the third state, right, which with the physical body is transformed, the soul is completely transformed. He says it transformed into the frame of giving. The first state could never emerge from the Ein-Sof. So the point is saying the basketball game was already created. The beginning from the first quarter to the end of the game was already created. However, you only watching it in the time when you were experiencing it. I think, what did he say, that thing, TiVo or something like that, where you could pre-record games and things and watch it later or whatever type of a thing before, everything's on YouTube. So it's that type of idea, right? The idea is that the history of the soul and what it's going to do is already laid out. This is the process that the soul has to go through in order to experience its ultimate potential, which is total connection to God's good, right? And so he's saying these things are dependent on the other. The third state is the connection to the first state, because the first state is talking about the experience of the future, but only after the correction. The third state is talking about the correction itself that brings us to the future reality. Okay. So he says, if it were conceivable that the future would not happen, then there would be no existence. So existence only is predicated on the fact that there is a future outcome. There'll be no existence of the perfected soul in the presence in the first state. So it's like this: a baby is conceived in a mother's womb, but that same baby is going to one day be 70 years old with its own kids. So what exists? Does that 70-year-old not exist? Or did the 70-year-old not manifest itself yet? That the process to reveal this 70-year-old person has not came to fruition yet, right? It is not. It has not done that, right? And so from that space, right? So from that space, this is how we understand it. He says that this is the third state that requires the reality of the first state. How much more is regarding? It's like the whole system was already set up. That's what he's saying. The whole system, the whole 4 quarters of your life was already created in Shemayim. But that experience of 6,000 years is part of every generation that we experience is a correction, right? Every generation, every experience. That's why the reincarnation thing is real. And all the souls will be reincarnated because that's part of the perfected experience where the bodies are going to be corrected. This lifetime, we're focusing on the soul. But when the Mikaye Hamatim, when the resurrection of the dead happens, that is going to be the completion of the perfection of this soul experience, which brings us to the first state, which is the future reality. In the future reality, the body and the soul are in complete submission to the Creator, and we bask in the holiness of the Creator. Okay. So blah blah blah. So he says, as much more, so much more so regarding the hypothetical elimination of something from the second state, which contains all of the service of God. That is meant to lead to the third stage, the process of defects and gradual repair of the soul from level to level. We're here to correct our soul. This is why we're here in this world. We're not here to buy Gucci glasses. We are here to correct our soul, right? And so he says, and if the second state would not exist, how will we get to the third state? So everything, this is so amazing. We're learning this together. We're all students of Rav Ashlag. And he's teaching us the stages of progression. How does the resurrection of the dead works? Why does it have to happen? Now we understand. It's part of the process of the soul's development, and it has to go through these processes. So let's tell our Christian brothers and sisters who believe in the resurrection of the dead, you're right. But it only works from the frame of the correction of the soul, of us keeping Torah and mitzvot. You've been told that the Torah and all these things no longer value, and the covenant is over, and all these lies. Well, tell me how your soul's going to correct. How are you going to correct your soul? Oh, well, we don't got to correct our soul. So JC did it for us. Oh, man, why you do that to that man? Why you do that to that man? So it says, Matzi od matzav. He says, in addition, if the first state of the Ein Sof already contains all of the perfections of the third state, it follows that the second and third state must occur with all of the perfection that was already present there. It's like this idea. there's a famous statement by Michelangelo, right? And Michelangelo, big famous artist and the European, thing, whatever. And so he was a sculptor, not only just a painter, he was a sculptor. And so one of the sculptures that still exists today, I can't think of the name of it, and I'm thankful for God that I don't know Michelangelo's artwork because it's meaningless, from a spiritual perspective. But I will say that he says something that was interesting. He says that they asked him how could he take clay and be able to mold it into something that is so lifelike with so much details. And he says, how is he able to do it? And he says, I basically just peel away the clay and let the form reveal itself, right? So that's what we're doing, right? We're going through this life experience and life experiences with our partner, and we're here to help each other remove the desire to receive, so we can get into a place where we correct the soul, so we can move to the next progression level where that we are reincarnated, and then our bodies are perfected, and then we're able to live in the state that was already designed for us when our soul was created, which is a state of joy. Okay. He says, in addition, if the first state, okay, we said that. He says, that is to say, the first state requires that the two completion systems. Oh, I'm psychic. I just said that. And he says, and the body and the soul must separate in the second stage, so that the body the body that exists as a defect, as a defective desire to the soul, a defective desire to receive, damaged by the system of impurity, could be repaired. Right? This is what the stage is. He says, and were it not for the system of the worlds of impurity, we would never possess that desire to receive. It's from that. The desire to receive is not our enemy. The Yetzer Hara is not our enemy. It's only our enemy if we don't know what his job is and how to deal with it. And it would therefore be impossible to repair that desire to bring about the third stage, because a person cannot repair what he does not possess. Ooh, you got to be perfect off the top. Thus, do not ask how the system of impurity emerges out of the first stage, since the opposite is the case. The first stage requires the existence of the form of impurity in the second stage. All right, so we're going to stop here because he's going to go into free will. And I want to touch on this week's Parsha a little bit, but I do want to hear any reflections, any thoughts on this.
All right. Oh, well, I mean, this is like very profound because it's, huh? Oh, I'm sorry. It's profound because when we talk about these three progressions, what I envision is how basically, as we are attached to the mountain, that we're like a rock, or our soul is connected to Hashem. In the beginning, we have like all the knowledge, we have all of his presence, we have all of we understand his attributes, we're there, our soul is there, we understand our whole Torah, okay? But then when we separate from him and we are brought down to those through those worlds or those levels, and we end
Of
up
impurity.
What's that?
Those worlds of impurity.
Yes, those worlds of impurity. As we go through those worlds of impurity, there's like this level of forgetfulness that comes over us, and when we're conceived and we're born, it's as if our soul now has to go through all of the processes in order to bring the body back into subjection unto the relevance of the soul itself. And so from that standpoint, you spend your life correcting the soul, and then in turn, the reward for you spending your life correcting the soul and bringing the body into subjection, because the body is an entity that really does give us a different intelligence. It gives us, it gives us basically carnal impulses, carnal things to deal with on a day-to-day basis, that we didn't necessarily have to deal with in the soul form, you see. And so by us bringing everything into subjection and bringing everything into correcting under the Torah, it seems like the reward of the ultimate progression of this work, of this journey that we're on, is the resurrection of the body, because then now the body that is impure, it dies, and when it is raised from the dead, it is raised in perfection, just like when we pray, the soul that my Elohim, my Adonai, the soul that you place within me was pure.
In the morning,
right?
in the morning.
And so now, yeah, exactly. And so now we're gonna when we bring that soul back to Hashem, and now that a body leaves the body itself, the soul, not the soul, but the body separates from the soul, or the soul separates from the body's buried, and when it is resurrected, it's resurrected in an in purity and mortality. And so it's like we're getting the body, we're getting the flesh ready to basically become truly one with the soul. And so the power in that, what is very encouraging about that is that everything that we need in order to succeed, we have it. And so right now, at this stage of the game, that as you put it, stage of the game, now we have all of the tools in order to make this happen, to encourage us. There's nothing lacking. And based off of Christianity, being taught that these are not, that this is done away with. Oh, don't worry about it. These are just really good Sunday school stories to read. You don't have to go into Leviticus. That book is done away with. Those are the tools that we need in order to correct ourselves, in order to partake and participate in the resurrection. And without that, the body will never be corrected. The soul will never be corrected.
You didn't complete stage 2. Right? You didn't complete stage 2. And that should be the joy that we feel when we're keeping the Torah. That it doesn't matter what I'm going through. I heard a rabbi say, I can't quote exactly who it was, but he said that, how do we define happiness in the Torah, right? What is happiness? Like, what does it mean, happiness? And he says true happiness is different than joy. Joy is an experience, joy, with that whole thing, right? But happiness is knowing you're at the right place at the right time, dealing with exactly what you're supposed to be dealing with, because you're correcting your soul, right? And that's peace. Peace is knowing that everything that I'm doing, everything I'm experiencing is connecting me and correcting my neshama, my soul, and that's it. That's it. And I can't judge the corrections that Hashem is putting me through. My job is to stay loyal, right? My job is to stay loyal, and my job is to stay in a state of praise, right? And in that frame of reference, that's how we connect to peace, because I can't control what's going on out there. That's why he's going to start talking about free will next, right? Because that understanding of, well, if all this progression of the soul happens, how do I understand free will? Right? So he has to touch on that, right? But these are basic, when I say basic, these are very high level, but they're basic building blocks in terms of understanding and teaching our students how to understand the Torah, that is God talking to us. It's an inheritance, right? It's not a book that's outside. Go ahead.
Um, it also draws my mind to when you take a seed, because my mind, I'm sorry, my mind is really stuck on that first level.
Please go.
Right
Please
there.
go.
I'm
I'm
just
with you.
kind of meditating on that first level. Because it's, I'm thinking about children. I'm thinking about, that child that's told that they won't amount to anything, that they were a mistake. And you just all of these dynamics that come into play to try to distract and to hinder that soul from making it to that second level, right?
You're an orphan.
But the
You're orphan.
problem
Nobody
is,
loves you.
that's right, right? And so when you plant, you plant gardens and you plant fields, it's amazing because there's a seed, and the seeds are small. And you look at that seed looks very insignificant, but inside of that seed is the DNA of that seed. And so when that seed is planted and it's nurtured and it grows, you see a little small little plant, but then it continues to grow and you continue to nurture it, and you give it what it needs, and then all of a sudden you begin to see a flower blossom. But that's not the end stage. The end stage of it is, watch this here, you get fruit, right? And so now you get all of these magnificent fruits and vegetables, and would be a carrot or squash or whatever it is, but that's not the end stage. The end stage, you get the fruit off, and the flowers, they fall off, the plant begins to shoot up a little bit higher, and then what happens? It goes into seedlings, and it drops seedlings, and it dies, and it just starts over and over and over again. But the whole process is hindered if you damage that seedling
Yeah.
in that first, or you allow something to get to that seed. And so it's just, I mean, this is like groundbreaking. This is groundbreaking.
Yeah, Baruch
So
Hashem.
that,
And you're right, and I'm vibing off what you're saying because I hear what you're saying. You're saying that how crucial it is, especially for like when you give like parenting classes, right? Because I mean, you have 10 kids. I mean, that's a PhD, right? So when you do that, these teachings are so important because now you're talking about protecting the child in its early stages of development so it could be on a path of the real work, which is transforming itself through Torah mitzvot, right? And without that, that's why the parenting is so important, right? Because the parenting gets the kid in the game, right? That you are here for a purpose, that this is the system of creation, this is how you plug in, this is how you plug out. And from that they get that knowledge, and then they go on their journey, right? Where they're going to have their ups and downs and this or whatever, but the getting in the game comes from the spirituality of the parents. And so that aspect, because what's amazing about this, and like even hearing you, is you're so clear about this, right? So, but how could you be clear, right? We just learned it right now, right? We just learned right now. How are you so clear? It's back to what we learned in Masechet Nida. All the knowledge was given to us in our mother's womb. All we're doing now is just re-revealing it. Rav Ashlag is just revealing. This is the cosmic system that was in it. And something else that comes out of this too, when he talks about the future reality, that's a huge concept. That means that everything that encompasses me was already implanted in the seed when I was conceived, right? The whole existence was in the seed. So what does that mean? It's a huge concept because when we look at it, that means that when we look at our lives, why do we pursue love? Why do we pursue justice, right? Because it was already inside of us. It's already part of how we see the future reality where everything is just. Why does everyone talk about world peace and unity and all these lofty ideas, right? Because this is the future reality that our soul knows is going to happen. How long it takes, what the process is. That's why we want to do the work and get as many people involved in the correction of their souls so we could speed up the coming of Mashiach. That's the goal, right? We want to bring as many souls into this conversation to be able to go through that correction conversation on their own within the collective, right? And they're able to do that to achieve those correction points. And then from there, we start creating another society, right? A society fitting for the Mashiach to sit on his throne. But we got to be clean, right? And so at least our souls, right? Because when Mashiach comes, that's when the body gets its correction. So 100%, it's just a huge thing to think about. All the things that we desire in life are directly rooted to our soul's correction. And the soul's correction is not just, oh, I'm gonna fix something, but rather I'm going to achieve my my duty to be able to experience all the pleasures that God wants for you. Like it's really a good example. It's came to me right now. Is like you see like if you go to LA, you go LA is like very big Persian community, right? I think Southern Los Angeles has the highest amount of Persian, Muslim, and Jews of any place in the world outside of Iran, right? And so many of them migrated there in 1978, 1979 when the Shah fell, and Khomeini took over this whole thing. So the thing is, I was very involved in the Persian community, and always, the synagogue I was in was very Persian, and I was very involved. But the point is, Persian weddings are a trip, man. They never start on time, right? And the thing about it, if you don't know the style of the wedding, you could get caught up. How? So you go to these weddings, these fancy weddings, and they have, because everyone comes late, so they have these what they call smorgasbords, and all they got one station for meat, they got one station for fish, one station for this, and it's like amazing. You get there, you're hungry. They got a bar there, open bar. You throwing drinks upside down, drinking, eating food, the whole thing, right? Enjoying yourself, getting filled up. But then the actual wedding starts, and they open the ballroom, and they have even a bigger spread. But the problem is, you're already full. You can't enjoy that food that's there, and you looking at it like, oh man, I wish I got. Oh man, I can't have any of this. So this is the idea of the body, right? If you don't do the correction, you can't receive what God wants to give to you. You're already filled of impurities. You don't have the vessel to receive the pure light that God wants to give to you. And you won't be able to participate in the resurrection of the dead. You'll be the souls that are not a part of that. That's what they're saying by who are the wicked and who are the righteous. It's the ones who did the spiritual work in his lifetime to correct their souls through Torah and mitzvot. Oh, Tanel, you kind of quiet over there. What's going on? You meditating? You with us? What's going on?
I'm just taking it all in, just listening.
What you got? You got anything on this?
It's explaining why we go through suffering.
Yeah.
Why do you suffer? Why do the righteous suffer and the wicked don't? You gotta correct your soul. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is only concerned about your soul. Forget everything else. This is transitory. This is, if you want to say it's an illusion, fine. But it's preparation. And like we were talking about earlier this week, this is the world. The next world is the world of receipts. What did you do? How did you handle the things I sent to you that were meant to maximize your potential, to bring you to this next world? If you get caught up over here, all right, fine. Like you just said, you had all this food. You feel good, huh? Came and enjoy the real meal. The 5-star meal that's over here. Came and get it. You got full on appetizers.
On that point too, and then we're gonna do a couple Baal Shem Tovs on the weekly parsha, just because this is the beginning. We're not gonna go. I mean, we're not gonna spend another hour, okay? But I'm just saying, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the correction of the children and descendants of Abraham. They are now going to go through the beginning of the correction for the world. The whole world is going into this process of Egypt, going into this whole dynamic, the world, right? And so we have to understand what's happening based off of the Torah that we're learning. The whole basis of them is crying out for help. Mm-hmm. And then from there, a nation is formed. This is the first nation that is designed specifically for the purpose of teaching the world about the correction of the soul. We're not trying to teach them Bible verses. We're teaching them that they have to correct their souls in this lifetime to be a part of Michayei Hamatim. And so this experience of building this relationship, this kesher with the Almighty, starts in a unique way by these people who were basically nomads, living as Bedouins, just traveling in a caravan. Now, this is the precursor of them coming into a metropolitan, coming into a city with ministers and priests and Pharaoh and all these different characters. And they're evil. There's no God there, right? And so through the blessing of Yosef, they were able to come in, but we're not even there yet. But we want to understand this progression, because remember what we started at in Genesis. This is the last parsha of the book of Genesis, right? The whole thing's about to start now, right? The whole thing. And the thing about it, because our lives resemble the Torah and the weekly things and the energies and the cosmos, we're going to start getting busy too, right? And we're going to have to break ourselves out of subjugation through this period of time within ourselves, our own tikkunim, right? So what we're saying is this idea of now that we're understanding the Torah, we're understanding the purpose of this nation, this holy nation, and why this holy nation has suffered more than all the other nations in the world, in world history. Why we're the only nation that's still together. We're the Gibeonites and Hittites and all these other heights and all. Where are they at? Where are they at? Right? So the point is just saying that, so this is the beginning of this new reality of a nation that's formed. And so what we have to do is every step going forward, right? The brothers are unified right now, right? To a degree, more than they were before, right? But the point is that we're going into this place of the refinement of perfection, right? The refinement of protection, right? And so this refinement of protection that we're seeing is coming through a process of suffering. And it's not to say we should be looking to suffer. I'm not saying that. God forbid, be happy, enjoy, laugh, sing. Because of that, that's also a correction of the soul. It's just to say that when we do experience suffering, and there is a dark day or a dark week or a dark month, or God forbid, even longer, that we can understand why we're going through this difficulty, why it hurts, and why we're suffering. It's like a person catches a cold, right? They catch a cold. They're suffering. But if you know that your immune system is going to be stronger, that the bacteria and the impurities that were in you are being pushed out, and that God has created a miracle that when you have disease or when you have issues inside of you, that the body is automatically going to react to push out the impurities, right? That it's natural for me. So even though it hurts, I can't get out of the bed, I'm sweating, I can't hear, I have a headache, but I know in my heart this is part of my correction. And so that's the spirit we want to get to. So let's do a little Baal Shem Tov. Hold on. So 1 second. And with this reality, no one can control you. You understand? Like that's the thing. Like people are controlling us. They're controlling our moods. They're controlling our desires. They're telling you if you have this much money in your pocket, you should be happy. If you have this much money in your party, you should feel sad. Who has that power over me if the amount of money I have is directly connected to my correction, my tikkun? How can you create these matrices? So it says like this, Ve'ikara Yaakov el Banav Ve'amar. So he says, Yaakov called his sons, right? You remember this verse. Yaakov called his sons and says, gather yourself together, and may I tell you what will happen to you in the end of days. I think we just heard about the end of days, no? So the Baal Shem Tov is going like this. He says, Jacob says, what will happen? He said, because the redemption will seem to just happen. Everyone will be busy with their work, not thinking about it at all. and suddenly the Messiah, the Mashiach, will come. Just keep going. He's bullet pointing this. B'Shem Haval Shem Tov. So he says the Baal Shem Tov says that in the process of the Mashiach's coming, no one will have to die. God forbid. He says Yishachar Chabur. So he says in Yitzchar, right? Because now he's going to the next verse, right? That talks about Yitzchar. Yitzchar is a strong boned ass crutching down between the stables, right? He says, in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, the verse Yitzchar is a strong boned donkey. That is to say that there is a reward by the way which the donkey causes. Vashem Aval. So he says Yishakar, and he said that a spiritual reward can be brought forth from the material world. By eating and drinking, for instance, we uplift the sparks of holiness that are crouched down in the midst of different elements of the physical world. See how everything's starting to come together and make sense? These sparks are part of our correction. And in the low place, right? That's where all the action's at. In the darkness, in the action. Itim Begamara. So it says in the Gemara, it says like this in the Gemara. The Gemara says the Torah is very careful with a Jew's money. So people always say, the Jews, they only care about money, the Jews are about the money. Okay, it says it right in the Talmud. Let's see what it's about. So the Torah is careful about a Jew's money. Why? He says, because everything a Jew uses must be, everything a Jews use, be it clothing, food, utensils, there is a spiritual life force from which he derives pleasure. Without this energy, the objects could not exist. Therefore, these sparks of holiness are connected to one's personal soul, which explains why one person loves one thing and another person hates it and loves something else. And even when a person uses the object or eats the food just to sustain himself, he can still repair its sparks if he later serves God with the strength that he received from it. This explains why sometimes after a person has repaired the sparks in an object related to his soul, God removes from him and gives it to someone else. So that's just I want to hear that point. This explains why sometimes after a person repairs the sparks in an object related to his soul, God removes it from him and gives it to someone else because it contains another spark for a different source. That's deep. That could be took a lot of different places, but we're going to keep pushing for time's sake. Says Ve'amar. So it says, but Baal Shem Tov says, when people eat. So just so you know, so that's the point. For Jews, money, for the religious Jew, money is not a frame of power. It's a form of sustenance. It allows a Jew to do more mitzvahs, right? And that's it, because all we can take is mitzvahs. He says, the Baal Shem Tov says, we eat Torah, we drink. He says, the Baal Shem Tov says, we eat people, we drink people, we use people. What is this referring to? That to the sparks that are in each things. He says, therefore, we should be careful with our passions because the sparks that they contain because the sparks that they contain. He says we should be careful with our possessions. So everything that we own has holiness in it. Everything that comes into our house has a particular spark that we're supposed to elevate. Even when we go shopping, one of the things, you go shopping for Shabbat, or even during the week, all the food is choosing you, right? When you walk down the aisle and you feel this motivation, oh, I want to get this. Or even if you're going to go and get a potato, why did you choose that particular potato? Why did you choose that particular onion, right? If you're growing something, why is it that this particular thing grew at this time for you to eat it? Right? Because everything that exists in a Jew's life has an aspect of elevation. Even when we buy clothes, we say the bracha, shekianu, right? Because we're elevating the sparks even in the clothing. We buy a new item, a new couch, we say Shechianu. All these different brachas to elevate it. Yaakov. So he says, okay, so he says, and Yaakov gathered, and Yaakov inspired and was gathered his people. Okay, it says in chapter 49, verse 3. The Torah never says that Yaakov died. Likewise, the sages say, our father did not die. I hear from my grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, that the Torah is called Yaakov. Just as Yaakov did not die, so did the Torah. So the Torah is essential and never would disappear. So this is the precursor to Shemos. All right, so we're going to say that for next week. Any thoughts, and reflections, and ideas?
It's just I'm still kind of when I came in, we were talking about the Sahara, the purpose of it. You know what I mean? Like it says in Mishle that, you shouldn't allow the slave to become king or allow, the maidservant to, overcome the mistress. In Christianity, you're taught that you have this duality system. The devil's doing this, this is Satan is doing this, but in reality, it's a servant. It's a sparring partner if you use it correctly with the right knowledge. It's pushing you to exactly where you need to go to. Every situation that arises, you can't get there without the Yesahara. That resistance is the Yesahara. When you have the right knowledge, right Amuna, you overcome it. It's like, oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Now go back over there. When you come again, okay, fine. You're serving your purpose, just like it tells you in the book of Job. He came, he asked, what can I do? What can I not do? Okay, go do what you need to do now. And Job's job is to stay in Amuna, to stay in faith. So I was just thinking about that point. But when we go right now in this portion, like we're going to Mitzrayim, we're about to go into Mitzrayim. We're going to narrowness of consciousness, narrowness of physical, extremities, whatever. The purpose is for you to come out unscathed, whole, like our father Yaakov did. He came out whole after he wrestled the angel, the Sar of Edom, the epitome of evil in a sense. He came out whole. And that's our job when we go to Mitzrayim. So it's just staying in faith, staying with the right mentality. When the darkness comes, allow it to nurture you. Don't panic. It's okay. The sun will come. Like one of my favorite verses is Exodus 17:12. Moshe's hands were Muna to the coming of the sun. Stay in the Muna in the darkness, the sun will rise. Connecting it back to it when I came into the class about the different stages, like Hashem has created everything already. So your purpose, your season for darkness has an ending to it. Miketz. It has an ending. Okay. Stay in faith. Understand the process. Understand the tikkuning, the rectification is meant for your betterment. It's meant to maximize you. It's with love. It's with mercy. Hashem is never here to punish you. He's never here to. You can't be disconnected from Hashem. And Hashem is never disconnected. So even when you do fall, it's all a part of the plan. If Adam and Eve never ate from the tree, we wouldn't be here. So it's all of it is designed. All of it is perfectly mapped out. It's our job to navigate correctly with the Torah. Like I said, Yaakov is the Torah. He never died. He's in that spark is in us at every moment, every second. That consciousness is in us. So it's just relaxing the mind, relaxing the soul. It's like when you go get on the bus, you ain't worried about if there's enough gas in the bus. The bus got enough oil in it. You just sit back, look out the window, enjoy the ride, enjoy it. You don't have to worry about all those other things. Hashem is directing the bus. Just sit back. You got your ticket? Good. Get on. You know what time is coming, get on the bus, chill, relax. Everything's gonna be fine. If a storm comes, you're not worried about it. I'm sit here, I'm gonna look out the window. So Baruch Hashem, I hope we go into this Shabbat with this mentality, with this understanding that it's all good. It's all good.
All GOOD good. And I'll just say on that point, it's important, you know what I mean, what you're saying, because it's like we should be seeking peace. in his life. We should be seeking peace of mind. We should be seeking, and that the system doesn't give us that. Religion doesn't give that. It gives order, it gives these things, but until we take it upon ourselves to say, what is God really saying to me? And then God brings those people and brings those situations and bringing those informations to us, that we could really just kind of like dive in. The same thing, my journey, I needed answers, you know what I mean? And I didn't even know it, right? But the reality is saying that we're all very blessed to be on this journey and to be able to understand the complexities, but also the simplicity, of life, and say we should be seeking happiness. What can we do about tomorrow? But serve God today. You know what I'm saying? What are you going to do about tomorrow? What are you going to do? You're going to talk about it. You're going to think about it. You're going to contemplate this. You know what you do a mitzvah today? You worry about you have a klipa that makes you worry about tomorrow. All right, so go out and do a mitzvah. Go and help somebody. Go and do something that can change the way you feel about things. Go and daven. Go and talk to Shem. So next week, I think we're going to talk about this concept of hashbadadut, speaking to God in prayer. And we're going to bring different sources on it and go deep, because this is connected to, we're getting more familiarized with this plan. And it's interesting, now that we're learning this Torah by Rav Ashlag, everything makes more sense now. The sparks, the holiness, why is all this needed? Now we get it. Michai Hamatim. So, on the Shabbos, everyone have in mind, any last statements? Anybody? It's Houston? What did it say? Houston was that they said when they did the Apollo thing? Houston in the house. You guys got anything? You good?
No.
Good.
Okay. All right. So anyway, we'll close it out here. Just have in mind the resurrection of the dead over Shabbos, and thankful that even the Shabbat that we have is part of the correction of the soul. And so when we eat and we drink and we talk and we share stories and we eat as a family, like, wow, we're all correcting our souls right now. Like this is great, And you think about all the things that happen in the soul and the correction. So, just have in mind, like everything we do in the end destination is resurrection of the dead and immortality, and being able to experience the goodness, the true goodness, that the true goodness. I love how people call me when they know I'm on the thing. Anyways, any last statement? Houston, you good?
I was just kind of reflecting, because a lot of times, when you're going through those storms, you're going through those trials, and you don't see the other side of what, you know.
Oh man,
What happened?
it was too much light.
That's the time is wicked, man.
Hey Rob, I was gonna say, just kiddish tonight it's gonna be up.
Okay.
All right, you're back. They back.
Really quickly, you don't see it, and I know that we I talk about the storm that we as a family, and we didn't understand everything that we were going through at the time, but a year to the date of that storm, Hashem allowed us to great joy. And so we were walking in the store, and I was kind of keeping it to myself that,
Mm.
What happened?
I think they're having connection issues.
It's good to do a little bit of review on Ram Call, because we're going to go hard on that.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to go hard on that next week.
Mm.
And then if you want, I'm gonna do Rav Ashlag Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with his family. So if you want to join in those classes, you can. It's
Yeah.
up to you. It's optional. It's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, I think you may be at work during that time.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out, whatever, whatever. You could join in and even just listen on the
Mm-hmm.
earphones on your phone if you want.
Appreciate it.
You're back.
Okay, sorry about
Mikhail Hamatin,
that.
resurrection is happening right now.
So this mother, she tells us, she's like, you're expecting, and I said, yeah, I am. And she looked at me, and so I'm all. She goes, you're expecting twins, and I look at her, and I'm like, okay. Had no exam, nothing like that, and we walk out of the store. Immediately I started weeping and just talking to my patient about it. And I was like, would the Most High do this, for us? And he was like, oh no, because I was getting a little worked up. But we went through a trial, and the whole time, never the exam to see if we were actually expecting twins. It wasn't until like 4 days before the birth, and I knew I was like, something's definitely different. After having, multiple children, I said something's definitely different. And sure enough, we went and had the exam, and they said, you're expecting twins. And this
Wow.
was 4 days before they were due. 4 days before they were due. And so it was a blessing to see that, the Most High, He will take us through those dark periods. And sure, our twins, they have not replaced the loss of our daughter, but I will say the comfort and the joy and all of the things that come on the other end of just holding and keeping in faith and God, it's something that you cannot replace.
So Rebecca over there. Amazing, amazing. But and I'm just saying, I would just say this as a person, who's out, bringing a lot of information.
Yeah.
The experiences you guys have are so incredibly invaluable to our community. Just what you guys have been through, your leadership, your process. So just please start writing these stories out and documenting these points, because just the story you just said right now, you know how much strength that could give so many women and families, and all the things that your daughter, blessed memory, all the things, raising the kids, things, and this is Black family. This is what America tried to destroy, right? Exactly who you are, right? So it's just saying that it's just so important that we see how invaluable our experiences are to other people. This is the place of sharing, right? This is a place of transforming our soul to that when we see that all the experiences that we had are there to help other people, then we take every experience we have and we make it Kodesh, right? And so all the experiences, because we need all these Torahs, right? All these Torah totes, like all these different expressions of life in God, right? Because the same God who created experiences for Moses is the same God who creates experiences for me. I'm supposed to write my own Torah, right? So it's just to say that just all these experiences that we have, just value them. Let's publish them. Let's organize these thoughts. Um, how much information could I go and read about other Black men who were totally immersed in the Torah and their thoughts in families? I don't know a bookstore that sells that content, but I know millions of people who need it. Millions. 26% that they say identify as descendants of Israelites, African Americans, right? It's close to 20 million people, right? So it's just saying that it's like 16, 18, whatever. But the point is just saying that, right? But that's just what they say. It could be 50, right? So it's just saying that we have a whole community of people that, yes, we've seen Nation of Islam. Yes, we've seen the church. Yes, we've seen even Judaism. But what we're saying now is saying that, no, I'm going to be the cause. I'm going to share this information. I'm going to talk to my neighbor. I'm going to invite my neighbor over. I'm going to invite their family. I'm going to sit down with fathers. I'm going to share things I learned about fatherhood. I'm going to get some Black men together that have kids and say, hey, man, we all going to get together, and I'm going to have some pizza, and we're going to have some beer, and I'm going to share some of the things I learned about fatherhood and parenting. Now, some guys like, man, I'm not trying to hear that. But then there's a bunch of guys that will. And those guys, you're going to change their life. And I'll say it like this. I have friends that I grew up with that I met by playing sports, right? Like I'm talking about high school, junior high. And some of them didn't grow up in the neighborhoods that I did, right? And I have a friend of mine named Damian Williams. I grew up with him, one of my closest friends ever. We played football together since we were in eighth grade, And what's crazy about Damian is that he was a really good-looking guy. Like all the girls were into him. I think that's why I hung out with him to start with, because he was a guy. All the girls when he was half black, half Italian, just curly hair, the whole thing, right? And he was a quarterback, right? Anyways, when he was in ninth grade, he got this girl Crystal pregnant, right? And so everybody was telling her, and she was like a star basketball player. And she was a senior in high school, he was a freshman. And so everyone was telling her, oh, you got to get an abortion. This guy is not going anywhere, this, blah, blah, blah. You should go to college, you have a whole career. And so she decided to keep the kid. And now he eventually went to the military and became a Purple Heart soldier, and moved up in the ranks. And now he's retired, right? And now he has 5 kids, and they're still married, and they're happy. You know what I mean? And so, but one time he came to me and he said to me, he was like, growing up, my parents were really into like therapy and working on yourself. And he said, well, me and my wife were having problems because he went away to the Afghanistan war, right? In Iraq. He went like 3 terms, like four, whatever they call it, he was there a lot, right? And in combat. And when he came back, he had a lot of PTSD, these types of things. And I just remember him saying that, I remember my parents were really into therapy and working and stuff when we were kids. And he would sometimes, when he was hanging out, would say, hey, bro, I got to go to this therapy appointment. It's 1 hour. We'll be done. He will come with me, sit in the lobby, and be like, what's going on? This is so weird. Who goes to therapy? This is like a long time ago, right? And so our whole family was into it. This is my parents were really into this as a thing. We had group family therapy, this, whatever. As I evolved, the Torah is the therapy, right? But the point is the same. This is where my parents were at. But what is my point? My point is to tell me that there was times where he wanted to quit on his marriage, and he said he remembered what my parents did in terms of therapy and this type of things, and they did it. And because of those experiences he had, just hanging out, were experiences later that allowed him to maintain his marriage and his family and his fortitude, because he saw my parents and he saw them working on themselves. He saw them, and he also had 5 children, right? And so that impact, just seeing us, no one ever told him to do anything. We all living our own lives, the whole thing. In that, right? And so the point is just saying your presence alone can change hundreds of thousands of lives, right? Millions of lives, right? And so that's that part of being in a place of sharing, is understanding that even the difficulties that we went through is there as a gift to someone else. Anyways, Baruch atah Adonai, leolam amen ve'amen. B'vat Hashem next week. Any points, any questions, reach out, but we shall have